Hi everyone, let's get started drawing a quick and easy skull in this art lesson. Start by drawing a circle and then another circle down below that with the two circles overlapping. It's okay if they're not perfect, don't worry about that very much right now. And then erase where they overlap. I'm going to draw a guideline right down the middle and then about from halfway to the bottom to top, another guideline where the eyes will be, and halfway where the nose and then the mouth will be. So I'm just going to sketch in the eye sockets, and they are kind of oval shapes, but they're tipped on the side a little bit. So they're not circles, and they're not rectangles. They're just kind of these ovals, but they're tipped to the sides a little bit. And again, don't worry if it's not very perfect. I'm gonna make this skull really nice and sketchy and loose, and so it doesn't matter if things are just off a little bit. And sketch in the nose. So the nose is kind of like an upside down heart shape, and it's rounded at the top, but leave that little the septum that goes down the middle of the nose that separates the two nose cavities. Leave it there, and we'll leave it white. I just sketched in the mouth, and I'm going to come back to that later on and add more detail to the mouth. Now I'm defining these bones, the face bones, the cheekbone. It's going to come down and right around where the nose, the base of the nose is where these cheekbones are going to kind of swoop in and then go down and meet the jaw. Now I'm drawing in the back of that jaw. And then it's going to kind of come down and meet the chin, the other side of the back part of the jaw. So remember that whole back part of the jaw, like the chin and the back jaw move, whereas the top teeth and the top of the skull are all one piece. All right, so the back part of this jaw on the other side. Notice my drawing is not 100% symmetrical, and that's okay. A lot of times when they photograph skulls, they're off a little bit one way or the other. So if you want to go ahead and make your drawing really symmetrical, feel free to do that. I'm just drawing a skull I found off the internet. Now I'm adding a little bit more detail to the top. So right behind the eye sockets, there's a little divot where the skull kind of sinks in. So I'm going to be drawing in a shadow behind that area. They're just going ahead and kind of defining those areas and defining the top of the skull a little bit more clearly. Erase the guidelines that you don't need. Leave the ones in the mouth because we're still going to go back in and do the mouth. So that is where the center of the mouth is. That's the top row of teeth and then the bottom row of teeth. The top row of teeth is going to be a little bit taller and bigger than the bottom row. Maybe I can fit in 3 or 4 teeth there across the front on each side. And the top part of the tooth is a little bit skinnier than the bottom part. Just drawing in each tooth one at a time. So as the teeth go back into the jaw, they're a little bit smaller. This is due to perspective, so make sure to make them smaller as they go back. Now the bottom teeth are a little bit smaller than the top teeth, and they're also going to sit behind the top teeth. So I'm actually not drawing the top of these bottom teeth. I'm just letting them sit behind the top teeth. And then you can go in and add a little bit of shadow between the teeth. Now I've switched to a softer pencil. This is a 9B. It's just about the softest, darkest pencil you usually come by. So I can get some nice dark areas really quickly. I'm keeping my lines nice and loose and sketchy, just doing some quick hatching to sketch in and get some nice shadows in here. In this area where between the jaw and then the front, that's going to be nice and dark as well. So I'm trying to work the drawing overall. I'm not putting a whole lot of detail into one area over another. I'm working the whole drawing all at once. So after I've gotten all this, the kind of the basic sketching and shading in, now I'm going to go in and add in a little bit more detail. But still keeping my lines nice and loose and sketchy. So a little bit more detail into the back jaw. A little bit more darkness in the eye sockets there in some of the area. And now working on the front part of the skull, just kind of adding in some texture, some nice scumbly lines. Keeping my lines nice and loose and adding in more detail and more definition as I go along. And on the other side, kind of repeating the same idea, getting some texture and a little bit of shading in with these nice loose sketchy lines. So it can be really helpful if you did want to go online and get a picture of a skull and work from that, or you can just go ahead and draw along with me. So I'm adding a little bit of shading where the teeth go into the top there and at the bottom as well. Also keep in mind that with your shading, you want the shading to not be too dark in the background, because darker values tend to come towards you, and so you want to make sure that the area, the back part of the jaw and the back part of the skull where it's starting to go back into space, you don't want those areas to be too dark, because then it might feel like it's trying to come towards you instead. So you want those areas to be a little bit shaded, but not too dark. And so I'm making sure that my darkest areas are the eye sockets, the nose socket, and then the area right between the jaw. So again, some nice, loose, sketchy detail right there up at the top of the skull. Getting some texture, a little bit of value. With these nice, sketchy, loose lines. And that's basically it. And so now is a really good time to look at your overall drawing, and if any areas need to be lightened up a little bit, I could go in and use the eraser on them. If any areas need to be darkened up, I can go in and add a little bit more shading in, add any more detail where I'd like a little bit more detail. Here I'm gonna add just a little crack. This is optional, but it's kind of fun. It's kind of spooky. Gives a little bit of um, gives a little bit of atmosphere to your skull drawing. Makes it nice and fun. And lastly, I like to add a little shadow. Just a little bit, but make it nice and dark so that we get a sense that this skull is sitting on top of something, like it's not floating around in space. It's maybe on top of the ground or a table or whatever it is. And then kind of go ahead and go in and just soften up the edges of that shadow. And that's basically it. Thanks for watching.